Ever get that feeling where a new iOS update drops and you're kind of stuck, like playing mental tug-of-war with yourself?
Oh, tell me about it.
You crave those shiny new features.
Yeah,
But then there's this, like, nagging voice whispering, what if it turns my phone into a brick?
right.
Anyone with an iPhone 13 eyeing iOS 18, I know you feel me. Well, good news. TechWave Arena just put out this super in-depth article. It's like the ultimate cheat sheet for this whole upgrade dilemma. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
It's a tough call. It really is. I mean, how do you weigh the excitement of new stuff against the worry that it could all go wrong, especially when, we're talking about phones that aren't exactly fresh out of the
You
box?
hit the nail on the head. So let's talk about those tempting new features. The thing that really jumped out at me in the article was these interactive widgets they're introducing in iOS 18. They're not just static things anymore. They're basically mini apps right on your home screen.
Oh, wow.
Imagine like controlling your smart lights or checking off your grocery list without even opening an app, you know?
Yeah.
That's next level efficiency for
Yeah.
sure. And that's not all. They've also completely redesigned the control center. Have you seen this?
I have, yeah. And it's not just a surface level makeover. The article, it highlights how they're using AI now to predict like which controls you're most likely to need based on how you actually use your phone. They're calling it, get this, intuitive access.
Intuitive access. I like that.
And honestly, just from the screenshots, it looks pretty slick, really user friendly.
I got to check this out.
It's interesting to see how much AI is becoming, well, essential to the whole mobile experience.
For sure. It feels like we've been hearing about AI forever, but this update really seems like a turning point.
Yeah,
Like it's not just a buzzword anymore. It's actually making a tangible difference.
right.
But here's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Beyond the cool factor, the surface level stuff, how is all of this really impacting the user experience? What are people actually saying about it?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And the article, thankfully, gets into some specifics. Remember a while back we were talking about those AI-powered photo editing tools?
Oh, yeah, the ones that were supposed to like revolutionize how we edit photos.
Exactly. So apparently, iOS 18 integrates those tools directly into the Photos app. So no more switching between apps or anything. You can use AI to fine-tune the lighting, get rid of unwanted stuff in the background, even upscale the resolution of a photo, all without any complicated steps.
Wow.
It's about taking really powerful tech and making it something anyone can use easily. I think that's what makes this update so interesting, so promising.
Okay, so those AI enhancements definitely have my attention. But we got to talk about the elephant in the room, right?
The big P word.
Exactly. Performance. Is iOS 18 going to turn my trusty iPhone 13 into a laggy mess? That's what I want to know.
It's the question on everyone's mind with these updates. Thankfully, TechWave Arena, they did their homework on this. They pulled data from everywhere, user forums, social media, even did some direct surveys.
Okay, so what's the consensus? Are people happy campers or are they like throwing their phones out the window?
Surprisingly, it's looking pretty positive. Most iPhone 13 users are saying it's smooth sailing, pretty much like running iOS 17.
Really? No major slowdowns or anything?
Nope. Seems like Apple optimized the heck out of this update. Get this, some users even reported better battery life with iOS 18.
Hold on, what? Improved battery life on an older phone after an update? That's almost unheard of.
I know, right? I did a double take when I read that. The article mentions some under-the-hood improvements in how iOS 18 handles background tasks, how often apps refresh and all that. Apparently, those tweaks are making a noticeable difference, especially on devices like the iPhone 13 that are a generation or two behind.
Well, color me impressed, though I'm guessing it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Did the article mention any downsides or issues people were running into?
There's one thing. Some users with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, the top of the line model.
Yeah, the one with all the bells and whistles.
Right, so some of those users, they reported a few minor glitches, especially when they were doing really demanding stuff like playing graphics-heavy games or multitasking like crazy.
So pushing the phone to its absolute limit, basically.
Exactly. But even then, the article stressed these were isolated cases and not really a deal breaker for most Pro Max users. Probably just some early stage bugs that'll get ironed out in the next update or two.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Those high-end devices are always pushing the limits. You bring up an interesting point, though, and it's something we don't always think about security.
Ah, yes, the often overlooked but oh so crucial aspect.
Easy to get caught up in the new features, but security is paramount. What did the article say about iOS 18 in that regard?
They made a really important point. older iOS versions, they eventually get left behind when it comes to security updates.
Right, that's always a concern.
Yeah, and they gave a specific example. There was this security flaw discovered recently that affected iOS 16 and earlier. Apple patched it for iOS 17 and, of course, iOS 18, but if you're still on that older software, you're out of luck.
Oof, that's a scary thought. I mean, it really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? It's not just about having the latest and greatest features. It's about protecting your data, your privacy.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, citing new features, performance expectations, and the critical security angle. What else should our listeners keep in mind if they're thinking about taking the iOS 18 plunge with their iPhone 13? So we've talked new features, we've talked performance, we've talked security, but the TechWave Arena article also had this really helpful checklist for anyone about to hit that update button, like a pre-flight check before you take off to iOS 18 land, right?
Exactly. A little prep work goes a long way, and they stressed one thing above all else. Back up your data. Like, don't even think about skipping that step. Seriously. An ounce of prevention. You know the rest. I'll admit I've been guilty of skipping backups in the past, thinking what could go wrong. Let's just say I learned my lesson the hard way. Never again.
Been there. The peace of mind of a recent backup, there's nothing like it. But yeah, the article also recommends checking your app compatibility before you upgrade. Wouldn't want to upgrade and then find out your favorite game or that work app you rely on is suddenly on the fritz, right?
Oh, for sure. Especially for those apps we use every day. It's better to be safe than sorry. Now, this next checklist item is one that I don't think a lot of people would think about right away. They recommend checking your battery health before jumping to iOS 18. What's the thinking there?
Well, these new operating systems, all the cool stuff they bring to the table, it can sometimes be a bit more demanding on those older batteries. Like, imagine asking a seasoned marathon runner to suddenly sprint a 100-meter dash, right? They're going to need a little more recovery time. Checking your battery health before you update, it just gives you a heads up on whether your battery is up to the task or could use a bit of a boost. It's total sense. So we've covered a lot of ground here. New features, how it performs, that crucial security aspect. All things considered, what's the final verdict? Should someone with an iPhone 13 take the iOS 18 plunge or hold back?
Honestly, based on everything we've discussed, everything TechWave Arena laid out, it seems like a pretty sweet deal for most iPhone 13 users. The new features, especially those AI-powered ones, they seem genuinely useful. And the security enhancements alone, I think that's a huge point in favor of upgrading. There might be a few hiccups here and there, especially for those with the Pro Max model, but overall, sounds like performance is either the same or even better than iOS 17, plus there's the potential for better battery life. Can't argue with that.
I gotta say, after this deep dive, I'm feeling pretty good about updating my own iPhone 13.
Hmm.
But like you always hear with any tech decision, it really boils down to you, right? Your needs, your priorities.
100%. If you got to have the latest features, if you want that more intuitive experience, and of course that extra peace of mind on the security front, yeah, iOS 18 seems like a no-brainer. Go for it.
But hey, if you're perfectly happy with your current setup, everything's running smoothly, and you'd rather play it safe, stick with stability. Totally valid. Maybe wait a little bit, see how those initial bugs get ironed out. The beauty of technology is, ultimately, you get to decide what works best for you.
Couldn't agree more. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's all about what works best for each person.
And on that note, we'd love to hear from you. Have you upgraded to iOS 18 on your iPhone 13 yet? What features have you most excited? Or maybe you're holding back for now. Whatever your take, head over to our social media channels and tell us about it. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, happy updating, everyone.